Okay, brings us to the next item on this evening's agenda. A notice of intent filed by the estate of Raymond W. and Alice D. Clapp and care of William Clapp for SE 44 1435, subject property located off of Mattapoisett Neck Road. The chair would entertain a motion to waive the reading of the legal ad.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Lawrence.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Dickerson. Mr. Dickerson, the affirmative.
Affirmative.
Mr. Lawrence in the affirmative.
Affirmative.
Mr. Jacobson in the affirmative.
Affirmative.
Motion's carried to waive the reading of the legal ad. Mr. DeVignan, the floor is once again yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Dave DeVignan from Schneider DeVignan and Leone representing the estate of Raymond and Alice Clapp. On behalf of the estate, we have surveyed this property. We had LEC Environmental go out there and determine the wetland resource areas. We have salt marsh to the north and northeast of the property. We have salt marsh to the south portion of the property. There's coastal beach, and there is an overrun coastal dune. It's overrun with phragmites. We have filed on their behalf a notice of intent for essentially just cutting activities, and the cutting consists of cutting the phragmites down to grade. There are notes on the plan above the title block which state there is no excavations proposed for this project. There's no filling proposed for this project. There's no grade changes that are proposed. All slash material, the phragmite that is cut, will be removed from the site. The objective for this project is very simple: to create a campsite for them to further utilize the property. There is an existing kind of grassy parking area that we have cross-hatched on the plan. What we'd like to do is we're not going to change anything along the easterly boundary, but we're looking to just cut the frag down to grade a couple of times during the season so that they're able to use it, put a couple of picnic tables, use it as a tent site, put a fire pit in that grassy area with some chairs around it, and be able to park a couple of cars or perhaps even a temporary RV for the family to use the property. So that, in a nutshell, is the project. We did receive a file number from DEP, and there were no comments.
Okay. So from your perspective then, as the limit of work is essentially cutting an invasive species, you meet the performance standards for coastal dune, 310 CMR 10.28, 3 through 6 then?
Yes, I consulted with Mark Manganello at LEC, as he was
Okay.
the expert who flagged the site. I asked him what, in his professional opinion, what does he think we can propose for this project? And essentially, he said the cutting of the frag, as long as we don't remove the root system, we're not changing the stability of the dune. We won't be altering or allowing any change in the form of the dune because the root system will actually remain intact. We're just cutting down the invasives on a temporary basis yearly. So as long as we don't change the shape of the dune or the form of the dune or the characteristics of a dune, it's permittable, in his professional opinion.
Okay. That's all. We had, quite a bit of verbiage here on the performance standards, but, on the basis of just cutting invasives and not doing any excavation or any other activities, to my mind, that meets the performance standards as well. Okay. Chair has no additional questions or comments. Mr. Dickerson?
No comments or questions.
Okay. Mr. Lawrence?
I just have one question. Were they proposing an outhouse or anything down there? I don't see anything on the plan about that.
No, sir, because it's possible we might put a temporary portage on, but the use I don't know if it will warrant that being placed there, but it's possible. It could be a temporary porta john put there.
You do have
I
an
guess
ocean in front of you.
of anything, that would be preferred. That would be preferred,
Yes.
to Mr. Dickerson's comment.
Sorry.
No problem at all. It's always good to laugh. And, you know, the nice thing about that is that everything's evacuated by pump truck. So if they were to have it there for the season, you know, that actually would work pretty well. Mr. Jacobson, any questions or comments for the applicant?
No questions.
Okay, at this time, we'll open it up to the public. Are there any abutters to the project for SE 441435 located on Mattapoisett Neck Road that wish to ask any questions of the applicant?
Yes, there is.
Could you identify yourself, your name and address, please?
Sure. My name is Melissa Gregoire. My address is 251 Mattapoisett Road in Rochester, but I am the property owner abutting this property. I'm not sure the direction, I think to the east of there.
Okay.
I would say 15.0-40.0.
Okay. Sure. And direct your question or comment to Mr. DeVignan.
Mr. DeVignan, have you walked the site of this property at all yourself?
Myself, no. Personnel from my office have surveyed the property.
I have some concerns, not just for flooding, but for clearing of the Phragmites in the area of which you're saying it's really, really close to the water on both sides and already frequently floods in, I guess there's a line that kind of, the picture that is being shown right now is the area which has been maintained is the mode area, and off to the right is elevated up to the ocean, and then to the left it sort of slopes down to a recessed area, which you don't see in the picture. But beyond that is the back end of my piece of property, which is unusable because of frequent flooding, and then past that is salt marsh, I believe is what that is. And it is my belief that even though Phragmites are considered invasive, in this specific instance, it's creating a base, which is not only a buffer for erosion. If you can see several feet of seaweed that over the years have built up a barrier to prevent that whole area from flooding out, and then to the left of that, the Phragmites have their own debris that kind of falls and maintains an area there that I guess, I don't know, I'm not an environmental professional, but it actually seems to absorb the water instead of letting it flood. So just, and also to just cut Phragmites twice or even, or you said once a year, but even twice a year it's really insignificant of a way to maintain that removal system. But I have concerns for flooding on my own property, erosion of the beach area. The significance of Phragmites in the situation is actually a pretty high significance area, and also the fact that the area has recently been cleared of Phragmites and native trees that you can see off to the right between the cleared area and the ocean. There's already been some removal of trees and Phragmites to create a path to the beach, and I'm just not sure how this seems. It's already a campsite, I guess is my point. You can park a car, you can put a tent there. I'm sure you could start a little fire. I know I could, but to create it to be a place for a potential 30-foot RV, a couple of 8x8 camp tents, a fire pit. I don't really see how this is going to become a family compound. If anyone in the commission has walked down there, maybe they could, you know, address what I'm saying, but I've walked the survey line, and I stood there today and it's wet. It's like when I lift up my foot, it's saturated. So I'm not sure how the plan is to clear that is going to make it any better for the environmental situation. I don't want to ramble on, so I'll just kind of throw that out.
Mr. Vignan, do you care to respond?
The only comment I'll make is that we're cutting an invasive species that you really don't want there anyway. So we're not.
Well, I actually do. I've done a decent amount of research on the potential for Phragmites to be an actually beneficial species. So it's not like there's another beneficial species that replaces that. You clear it and then there's nothing. So if you go to the area, you will see that for at least in my past 20 years of spending time down there, it's doing something. It's creating a buffer. It's creating a habitat for creatures and other plants and things. So, and I've done some research on articles, and I'm not going to throw it at you right now, but the fact that yes, the Phragmites australis or whatever is initially an invasive plant, but it is also being shown to have a lot of benefits for coastal erosion, for carbon sequestering, for, metals, heavy metals. There's so many benefits for, I could see if you were replacing it with something equally beneficial, but you're basically trying to clear it to create like Camp Maplewood or something. I don't know. It's not a place for that.
Melissa, I'm going to stop you right there.
Thank you.
What the applicant has presented to us is a request for a family campsite, not a campground, not Maple Park. They've also requested permission to mow the Phragmites on a seasonal basis, not to eliminate it. If they wanted to eliminate it, the only way to do that is chemically. But under the Wetlands Protection Act, Phragmites is considered an invasive plant. So with respect to some of the comments that you've made, the Phragmites is staying. It's only going to be cut down so that they can enjoy the space on a seasonal basis. But it'll still be there. It'll still hold ground. It'll still grow. It'll still sequester carbon. It'll still provide those benefits because it's an invasive species. So it's just going to keep coming back. If they just cut it, it's not going to kill it, unfortunately.
No, I understand, but
not weed.
I understand, but my understanding is that and putting structures on top of it, like picnic tables and tents and cars and RVs and fire pits. So if you cut it and leave the tree behind.
The only performance standard is engineered structures. A picnic table is not an engineered structure. It's temporary and seasonal. Did anything else? I mean, if you're aggrieved of our decision this evening, you have the right to appeal it to DEP, at which point DEP will issue a superseding order of conditions.
I understand. Okay, I'll allow you to go on. I'm sorry, I have no further questions. I understand.
Yeah, sure. As a group, this is a pretty low impact project. There's going to be no excavation, no changes in grade. They're basically mowing an invasive species so that they can enjoy their property on a seasonal basis. It's low impact, and they're doing this at our request because there was a complaint about that happening without a permit. So this is a formal application for a formal permit for them to be able to do what they need to do in order for them to enjoy their property. And it does, as presented, meet the performance standards of the Wetlands Protection Act. So that really, we do not have a reason to deny it.
Okay.
All right, thank you for your concerns. We appreciate them and we appreciate your time. Is there anyone else this evening that wishes to ask any questions of the applicant relative to the notice of intent 44-1435 filed by William Clapp? Okay, hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to close the public, automatic continuance. It's a notice of intent. Per our COVID policy, this will automatically be continued for 2 weeks. Chair would entertain a motion for a continuance.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Lawrence,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Dickerson. Mr. Dickerson in the affirmative.
Affirmative.
Mr. Lawrence in the affirmative.
Affirmative.
Mr. Jacobson in the affirmative. The chair in the affirmative for a motion to continue. Mr. DeVignan will pick this up in 2 weeks.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.